Hey, Assalamu alaikum. The potassium is very important intracellular cation. So remember, intracellular mean within the cell. So it play important role. Remember about that. It is important for the exchange of the material like glucose, protein, fat into the cell and out to the cell. For example, the glycogenolysis and the glycogenesis, the conversion of the glucose into the glycogen, and a lot more function. Basically, the maintain of the blood osmolarity inside of the cell and the outside of the cell in the blood. So basically, the intracellular cation is very important for maintain the hydration in your cell and maintain the function of the nerve impulse. It means the nervous system also requires the potassium. So let's understand about through notes. Here is the notes. We will understand with the easy to understand through notes. So let's understand about the potassium. The function of potassium is the regulate fluid balance, support healthy heart function. So in this way, the healthy heart function is due to the potassium. Whenever the imbalance of the potassium and decrease of potassium will lead to irregular heartbeat is known as the heart arrhythmia. So anyhow, the low heartbeat or high heartbeat depending on the situation. So that is why the normal physiology of the blood circulatory system is due to the potassium. And the support healthy heart function, muscle contraction. Why muscle contraction? Because potassium maintain the intracellular cation and the calcium. So remember about that. Calcium is very important for the muscle contraction, but the potassium is too much important. Why potassium is too much important? Because the neuromuscular junction requires a signal from the brain to the motor neuron through a nerve impulse, and that nerve impulse requires the potassium. Whenever the loss of the potassium will lead to imbalance, and in this way the irregular nerve impulse will lead to jerk and will lead to dysfunction of the contraction of the muscle. So that is the problem. So in this way the requirement of the potassium is too much important. Remember about that things. So anyhow, the facilitate nerve function. So already you know. Maintain bone health. So how maintain bone health? Because the deposition of the calcium and phosphorus require the potassium, and the intracellular homeostasis require the potassium. So that is why the osteocyte also require the potassium for normal function. That is why the bone is also healthy due to the potassium. Maintain bone health and energy production. In this way, the potassium is also important for the production of energy. So remember about that things. Basically, the potassium is important for the production of energy. Why? Because the intracellular homeostasis, the intracellular function properly due to the potassium. And what is the potassium function? Potassium is very important intracellular cation, which that maintain the osmolarity inside of the cell and the outside of the cell, and it will maintain the water content inside of the cell, because the potassium hold the water inside of the cell rather than the outside of the cell. Because the outside of the cell in the blood circulatory system, the water holding capacity due to the sodium, due to the albumin protein which that contain negative charge, and a lot more cations. I hope you make sense about that. So food source is the banana, avocado, spinach and beans, nuts and seed, as well as fish. So I am recommending the best source of the potassium, not banana, but the avocado, spinach and the beans, because it contains less amount of the carbohydrate. In this way the insulin will not spike. So whenever the insulin will not spike, so the potassium consumption for the absorption of the glucose will be decreased. In this way the potassium holding capacity in your body will increase due to the insulin buffering, while increase the growth hormone. Growth hormone also maintain the potassium in your cell. So the banana, if you want to consume the banana, so 2 banana and the 1 avocado and some leaves of the spinach, while the bean should be basically nuts. You can almond or walnut, which does contain potassium, and seed. Basically seed also, basically the almond is a seed, and fish. You should consume the fish, but minor level, because if you have any complications, so please maintain the caloric restriction diet. So in this way, for example, will maintain the caloric restriction diet if you are not working hard, if you're not going to the gym, if your goal is not to build muscle. So that is why. So remember, so in this way, the recommendation daily is 4,700 milligram per day, which that is a lot more mineral requirement in your body as compared to the other, like sodium, like chlorine, like another, basically the cations, like the calcium. So this is the most important intracellular cation, like the calcium. You should also consume the calcium, but calcium can be calcium you can consume through egg, you can consume through supplementation, but the green vegetable which that provide the calcium and the potassium. So you should green vegetable and salad, which that is important for your healthy life to recover the 4,700 milligram per day, the potassium requirement throughout the day, basically in every day. So it is difficult, but you can consume through green vegetable. So 4 cups of the green vegetable within the day, or the salad, basically uncooked green vegetable and salad, which that recover your potassium loss. So why potassium loss? Due to the drink of the too much water for hydration, so the potassium will loss. So the holding capacity of the water will decrease due to the holding of the water inside of the cell will decrease due to the loss of the potassium. So you should concern with the consumption of the potassium rather than the drinking of the water for replenish the dehydration problem. So the hydration is very important for the all metabolism, like catabolism and anabolism. So in this, the breastfeeding woman basically should consume 5,100 milligram per day. So the deficiency risk is the fatigue, muscle weakness, and the abnormal heartbeat. On the other hand, the constipation, because the less absorption of the, basically the more absorption of the water from your digestive system, because the imbalance, because the potassium hold and maintain the water content into the bowel as compared to and inside of the blood circulatory system, because the potassium is too much important, and that is why. On the other hand, the numbness and tingling due to the nerve damage, because if you will not consume too much potassium, so the nerve will damage. So remember about that things. So I hope you make sense about that. Here is the diagram which that show the potassium working for brain. So remember, here is the potassium will move, basically is the sodium and potassium exchange. So remember about that things. Potassium will move inside and sodium will move outside, will lead to give the nerve impulse, and this will lead to contract your muscle. While the supplementation here, you can see that is the supplementation, potassium gluconate and the potassium citrate and the potassium orotate, which that is a supplementation form. But I am recommending the natural consumption of the potassium, which that is important for you. I hope you make sense about that. See you in the next video for this one. Bye. Allah Hafiz.